WWE in 2020 put on 13 different pay-per-view events. In this video today, I'm going to rank them from worst to best, talking about why each pay-per-view is where it is, why I either remember the pay-per-view fondly, why I remember it negatively in a couple of instances, really just a general discussion about the pay-per-views of 2020. So, hopefully you guys enjoy the video, smash that like button, comment down below whether you agree with my rankings, whether you agree with number 1, 13, or anything in between. So, all that kind of good stuff. And without further ado, I'm just going to get into this. So, number 13, the worst pay-per-view of 2020. This should come as a shock to absolutely nobody. The worst pay-per-view is Super Showdown 2020, or as I've referred to it all year, Saudi Showdown. This show, I don't really know where to begin. I'm not going to go on too much of a tirade about this because I've addressed this show enough. Goldberg and The Fiend. Personally, I didn't hate it as much as some people did, but nonetheless, it was a terrible way to cap off an otherwise just dry show. We look at Saudi Showdown 2020, we had King Corbin versus Roman Reigns in a steel cage. This was about their 400th match they had with one another. No one wanted to see this match, and it was just a dead match all around. So there was that gauntlet match they did that went for like 32 minutes, the two-way trophy from memory. So they did that, and then that culminated with Undertaker just chokeslamming AJ Styles. So, I mean, that was fine. And then the rest of the show, I don't even remember. So, all around, Saudi Showdown 2020 was a dead show. Easily the worst pay-per-view of 2020. I think that's basically undisputed now. So, yeah, worst pay-per-view of 2020 goes to Saudi Showdown. At number 12, for the worst pay-per-views of 2020, or ranked pay-per-views, I've got the horror show at Extreme Rules. This lived up to the name. This at Extreme Rules really was a horror show right across the board. Extreme Rules featured a number of just baffling booking decisions. For example, the eye for an eye match, having Rey Mysterio have his eye removed by Seth Rollins, and then Rollins was spewing, bruh. So they did that with Rollins and Mysterio. We had the stuff with Asuka, Bayley, Sasha Banks, where Asuka and Sasha Banks had a Raw Women's title match, and then Bayley was the ref and put a referee's top on, so then Sasha won the title, I guess. It was just a mess. There were so many just dumb booking decisions on that show. McIntyre versus Ziggler, who cares? And then the Swamp match was alright, but that was really about it. So, the horror show at Extreme Rules, not a good pay-per-view. It's not as bad as Super Showdown, but it's not much better. So, yeah, the horror show at Extreme Rules comes in number 12. Moving on to number 11, I've got Payback. Now, Payback wasn't necessarily the worst pay-per-view. It's just kind of irrelevant. Nobody is rushing to the WWE Network going, oh my god, I've got to watch Payback 2020. I was trying to rank these pay-per-views, off the top of my head before consulting Wikipedia and whatnot for the results. I was trying to think to myself, what even happened at this pay-per-view? Payback 2020 was Roman Reigns winning the Universal title in a triple threat match, which the match wasn't even that great, but he won the title, and then Keith Lee beat Randy Orton. And then we got, I think, Ray and Dominic versus Murphy and Rollins in a tag match. That was literally the pay-per-view. So, not the worst pay-per-view. If you had to watch Payback 2020, you're not going to be ripping your eyes out and wanting to never watch wrestling again, but compared to the rest of these shows, it's just irrelevant and a dry show. So, number 11, Payback 2020. Moving on to number 10. At number 10, I've got Backlash 2020. This show is mainly remembered for the greatest wrestling match ever, Edge versus Randy Orton. And really, outside of that, I mean, we did have Lashley versus Drew McIntyre, which was a good match, but the rest of the show sucked. So, because of that, I can't really have this pay-per-view any higher than 10, I feel like. Because, yes, Edge and Randy Orton was fantastic, no two ways about it. That match, the way they put that together, Edge and Randy Orton, yes, the piped-in cheering did get a little annoying at times, but the match itself, 40-plus minutes, just incredible wrestling match. So many moves, callbacks in that match, but really, outside of that, yes, as I said, McIntyre and Lashley was good, but the rest of the pay-per-view was just abysmal. We had Nia Jax and Asuka having a double count-out. We had Braun Strowman beating The Miz and John Morrison in the Universal title match. We had a couple of other dead matches, so the good outweighs the bad and whatnot. So in this situation, the good has an even weight with the bad. So Backlash comes in at number 10. If you have to watch the pay-per-view, it's not the worst show you'll ever see, but compared to the ones above it, it's just not that great. So, yeah, Backlash comes in number 10. Moving on to number 9. Number 9, I've got Money in the Bank 2020. This show it's so in the middle, it's not funny. Like Money in the Bank, Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins for the WWE title, match of the night. Really damn good stuff with McIntyre and Rollins. Those two guys put on a show for the titles. That was really good. And then outside of that, the Money in the Bank ladder matches were fun. Like in hindsight, having Otis win was just a terrible booking decision, which could have made Money in the Bank go lower on this list, but I've ignored that. The Money in the Bank ladder matches, when I watched them at the time, I had a bunch of fun watching them. I really enjoyed them, especially the stuff in the men's part of it, where Bruce Pritchard emerged from the bathroom as Brother Love and said to Rey Mysterio, "I love you." So that was really good, but yeah, just in general, Money in the Bank was serviceable, nothing great, nothing horrible. Like Money in the Bank slides in at number 9, so that's that one. Moving on to number 8. Number 8, I've got WrestleMania. So WrestleMania 36 comes in number 8. I was thinking about WrestleMania a lot, and really just, it's such a bang average show. WrestleMania 36 wasn't amazing. There were some amazing things that happened on it, but there was a lot of bad on those shows as well. So it comes in at number 8. Smack bang, near enough in the middle. It was an alright 2-night event, but like, yeah, the Boneyard match, Styles and Undertaker, phenomenal. Firefly Funhouse match, phenomenal. Drew McIntyre beating Lesnar in 4 minutes. I really liked that. And then, I mean, the SmackDown Tag Title ladder match, I enjoyed that. And really, that was about it as far as WrestleMania goes. So that was really good. Edge and Orton was good. But then the other, 12 matches were pretty just meh. I mean, Rhea and Charlotte was good. But, pretty much the rest of the matches were just there. So, WrestleMania 36, no crowd in attendance for WrestleMania, comes in number 8. I feel like it's a fair spot for it. So, yeah, WrestleMania 36, number 8. Moving on to number 7. Number 7, I've got the Elimination Chamber 2020. This show, it had a bunch of good matches, but it's similar to Survivor Series in the sense that the matches kind of meant nothing. Like, Daniel Bryan and Drew Gulak opened the show, they dropped each other on their necks about 3 times, and that was the match. We had the SmackDown Tag Title Elimination Chamber match. I mean, it was good, I guess. The titles mean nothing, so it was kind of hard to get into or care about. We had, a couple of other good matches from, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I remember a number of good matches on that show. Aleister Black and AJ Styles was good as well. But really, outside of that, the main event was a women's Elimination Chamber match where Shayna Baszler eliminated all 5 opponents to advance to WrestleMania to fight Becky Lynch. So, looking back on that, and where that led to, and how dead that main event match was, I can't have Elimination Chamber anywhere higher than 7, so the Chamber fits in number 7. Moving on to number 6. At number 6, I've got Survivor Series. This one, I did have this show as high as 3rd when I was doing this ranking, and I was weighing up where these would go. But I really thought to myself, look, the matches themselves really have meant basically nothing, because as much as Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre was incredible, that match was just 2 guys who epitomise what pro wrestling should be, 2 larger-than-life beasts going at it, world champion versus world champion. As amazing as that was, and as good as the tag team title match, or New Day versus Street Profits match was, as good as those matches were, I think the matches themselves pretty much meant nothing, especially the women's Survivor Series match and the men's Survivor Series matches. Those were just kind of dead. So in that regard, I didn't want to have Survivor Series too high, but that said, The Undertaker's farewell was just incredibly done, and that on its own was one of the best segments and moments of the year. So I had to have this show somewhere in the top few. It's fallen to number 6 just because as a whole pay-per-view, it wasn't that great. The last 40 minutes were great, but the first 2 hours were meh. So yeah, Survivor Series comes in number 6. Moving on to number 5, I've got SummerSlam at 5. I think SummerSlam as a show, it was a pretty damn good SummerSlam. If you're giving it a number grade, it's probably a 7 to an 8 somewhere. It wasn't some, oh my god tier SummerSlam. But I watched back my SummerSlam review and I was very positive about SummerSlam in my review. So in that regard, it has to get itself a placing towards the top. I think SummerSlam, it had the Roman Reigns return, which was the big talking point. Dominic Mysterio made his debut against Seth Rollins. I thought that was really good. And really from there, that was about it. There wasn't really much else that was really that great. Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton had a good title match. It wasn't incredible. So SummerSlam all round was a pretty good show. Nothing god tier, but I think it's more than worthy of the 5th position. Moving on to number 4. At 4, I've got Clash of Champions. Clash of Champions gave us 2 5-star matches in my opinion. The opener, the ladder match, AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy, Sami Zayn. Incredible ladder match. The psychology of that match was fantastic. Sami Zayn really played up his character well. The really strategic, logical heel, handcuffing Hardy and Styles to ladder and the ropes respectively, and as a result, Sami Zayn grabbed the titles. So phenomenal opening ladder match. In the main event, Reigns and Jey Uso. Just some of the best storytelling we've seen in pro wrestling in many years. That match was just sensational. So those two basically 5-star matches make Clash of Champions a really good pay-per-view, but it sucks with Clash of Champions that pretty much everything in between was pretty dead. Like, pretty much nothing of note happened in between those two, like the great opener and the great main event. So Clash of Champions falls to 4, but all round a really good show. Then number 3, I've got Hell in a Cell. Hell in a Cell, this show, it's a bit of a weird one. It's like, I don't know how I'd compare. Basically, the opener, middle, and end was really good, but the stuff in between that was not. For example, the opening of the show was Reigns versus Jey Uso, which that match should have main evented. That match was the best thing on the show by far, and really, I don't think there's much debate there. Reigns and Uso told a beautiful story in that match, so that was phenomenal, a 5-star opener. Then, Sasha Banks and Bayley, it was a really good Hell in a Cell match. Not like the greatest match I've ever seen, but like a pretty good match. Sasha won the title, so that was good. Main event, Orton and McIntyre. The weakest of the 3 Hell in a Cell matches, not bad, but not great. I think the fact that there were 3 Hell in a Cell matches, it was good, but it was kind of overkill, because considering the other matches on the show, like Bobby Lashley versus Slapnuts, like those matches just weren't very good. So I think Hell in a Cell comes in number 3, still really good. It's the top 3 pay-per-view of the year, but it's not getting top 2. So that's Hell in a Cell. Moving into number 2. Number 2, I've got the Royal Rumble. This show feels like it was forever ago. To think that this show took place in 2020, when there were 50,000 odd people in the stadium for this show, it's hard to believe, but this show did happen in 2020. The main reason it's number 2 is that Edge made his return, and the men's Rumble match was as good as it was, because as a show, the Rumble this year, excluding the men's Rumble match, was like a pretty good all-round show. Like, there weren't any really bad moments on it. The opening match, the last man standing, Reigns and Corbin, was fun. The women's Rumble match was a fun match to watch, not incredible. The way Charlotte won was but as a match, it was fine. Daniel Bryan and The Fiend in the strap match, I enjoyed that. Lacey Evans and, was it Lacey Evans? I don't know. The women's title matches, Lacey Evans versus Bayley, there we go. Lacey Evans and Bayley was fine. Becky and Asuka was good. But really, it's the men's Rumble that makes the show top 2. The men's Rumble match was, I dare say, the best Rumble match, God, in at least a decade. That match was incredible. Some will say 2018 just because they're Nakamura stands, but really, as a Rumble match, yes, 2020's Rumble match had Brock Lesnar dominating people for a while, and that was kind of dead, but I personally loved that part of the match. And then the second half of the match was just god-tier bookings, with Edge making his return. So the Rumble comes in number 2. And that means, number 1, the best pay-per-view of 2020, Tables, Ladders, and Chairs. This show, I watched this, obviously, when it happened live. Incredible show, top to bottom. Nothing bad happened on this show. Yes, some of the matches, well, most of them were very predictable, but the actual show itself was a breeze to watch. Styles versus McIntyre, opening the show in a TLC match for the WWE title. Excellent match. The Miz doing his cash-in and failing. I love that. I think Sasha Banks and Carmella had a really good match. Carmella's best match in her career, I'd say. It's a really good match and showing there from Carmella. The Hurt Business beating the New Day to become Raw Tag Team Champions. I love that. Great to see the Hurt Business finally win the titles. I think the other stuff on the show, just in general, having the Universal title, Reigns and Owens, that was near enough a 5-star match. Beautiful storytelling, brilliant TLC match for the Universal title. And the main event, The Fiend versus Randy Orton, having The Fiend set alight the way they did. One of the most memorable wrestling moments, not just of 2020, but the last decade, I'd say. Like, that visual of The Fiend just burning in the middle of the ring, that will live forever in pro wrestling. So, TLC 2020 is the number 1 pay-per-view of 2020. Leave down below what your opinions are on my countdown. Just to recap, from 13 through 1, Super Showdown, The Horror Show at Extreme Rules, Payback, Backlash, Money in the Bank, WrestleMania 36, Elimination Chamber, Survivor Series, SummerSlam, Clash of Champions, Hell in a Cell, Royal Rumble, TLC. So that's my rankings for WWE's pay-per-views in 2020. Leave down below your rankings. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to like, comment, sub. It's on the drill. See ya.